Taylor. Oh, look at that. As soon as we start streaming, it goes from 3 concurrent viewers to 2! Starting a couple minutes early. We're going to noodle for a second. And then get going here with today's plan. Greetings, Mr. Okay, so what is on today's agenda? Well, like it says, we're going to respond to guitar lesson videos making bold claims. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, and it's about damn time to get back into it. Plastodon, hello! Good to see you. Okay, so I keep seeing a thumbnail for one video pop up over and over again. And, damn it, it's about time we go over it. So, what is the first video we're going to look at today?
Have you ever seen those?
Well, let's finish getting things set up here. Switching over to this. All right. So, title of this video: find the chords to any song on guitar in 3 steps. Any song in 3 steps. Hang on a sec, I need to... Here we go, okay. Right. So, I've also given this some thought, like how do I want to go about doing these responses and whatnot. There's always that risk if I start running my mouth, then, I'll come across as an asshole. At the same time, if I come across too daintily and too nice, well, I don't think it's going to get the message across. So, I'm thinking for this video here, and perhaps this needs to be part of the video as well, my dear video editor, I have never seen this video before, so this is a absolute, honest, truthful response to it. I have seen the thumbnail many times to this video entitled, Find the Chords to Any Song on Guitar in 3 Steps Without Tabs or Sheet Music. So I'm going to pretend like this guy is here with me, so this way I don't come across as too much of a D-bag. So, I have concerns with this title because it's a very bold claim, and like one of the first things I'm thinking of is like, what if it's a song that doesn't even use chords? How in the heck can something like this be useful for death metal, thrash metal, things that have a lot of crazy moving parts? So when I see a title like this, it gets me irritated because I don't think it's true. But he might prove me wrong. We're even going to take what he teaches in this video and apply it to songs I don't think it's going to work. So, yes, I am coming into this. I should have this changed. There. I am coming into this with a negative mindset because I don't believe it. I don't believe it, but please prove me wrong. Let's find out what he has to say. And let's see if I can remember to switch between the 2 different scenes here in OBS. Here we go.
Have you ever seen those musicians who can just listen to a song once and figure the whole thing out? No tabs, no sheet music.
I can't hear it, but it looks like something's being picked up. Hold on. that's coming through there, but I'm listening to it on this. Desktop audio. Properties, default, okay. Can I hear it now?
Music, they just listen.
Alright, cool. Like Rick Beato. I feel like I missed something. Does Rick Beato claim those kinds of things? Like you can do, oh hell. Yeah, okay, so does Rick Beato claim these kinds of things? Like you can figure out chords to any song or whatever in X amount of steps? Is that what you mean? Alrighty, here we go. From the top. Now I can hear everything.
Have you ever seen those musicians who can just listen to a song once and figure the whole thing out? No tabs, no sheet music, they just listen to it, maybe fiddle around a bit with their instrument, and they know the song? Well, you're probably thinking to yourself, they've got to be a musical genius or a prodigy or something to be able to do that, right? Nah. Now, I kind of feel like I'm exposing a magic trick here a little bit, and some tribunal of musicians is going to come after me and get me in trouble. But honestly, it's really easy, and even a beginner can do it. So in this video, I'm going to show you a 3-step system to find the chord.
So my first level of skepticism right there. He said, even a beginner can do this thing. I have worked with a lot of beginners, and I would say most beginners have a terrible ear. Terrible ear. They don't even know when their guitar is out of tune. But let's see what he has to say. Oh, you mean Rick can figure out songs, whatnot, really, really fast. Yeah, John T. Alright, so yeah, continuing on here, yeah, let's continue on. The video will be edited after this anyway, so let's see what he has to say next.
Chords to almost any song. Let's get into it.
Okay, so there we go. He's changed it from the title saying find the chords to any song, and then he just now said the chords to almost any song. Those are two different things. Possibly. Let's find out.
So the two things you need to know are the note names on the E and A string, and the major scale and scale degrees. Now, if you've already watched these videos of mine, you can feel free to skip through this section, but if you haven't, I'll give you the quick version right now. So to find the note names on the low E string, the way I like to do it is I like to memorize my fret markers first. So that would mean that this is an open E, then we go F, F sharp, G, so that's G right there, then G sharp, then we go to A right here, then we go A sharp, then we got B, and then there's no B sharp, so we go to a C, then to a C sharp, then next we have a D right here, then a D sharp, then a D. Okay, so for the A string, we've got A when it's open, then we've got A sharp, then we got a B, then there's no B sharp, so we go C, C sharp.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead through the find the note names and the major scale. So I know what those are. If you don't know what those are, well, shit. Alright. So prerequisite number 2, the major scale. Alright. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It froze up.
We'll just call it the major minor formula. And what that formula is that each number is going to have a corresponding major or minor. So for example, the 1 chord is always major. So no matter what key you're in, that 1 chord, whether it's in the key of C, that 1 chord is going to be a C major. If you're in the key of D, that 1 chord is going to be a D, it's going to be a D major. Okay, so the whole formula is the 1 chord is major, the 2 chord is minor, the 3 chord is minor, the 4 chord is major, the 5 chord is major, the 6 chord is minor, and then the 7th chord is a little bit weird and different, and we don't use it that often, but it is a diminished chord. So what that means is no matter what key we're in, no matter where our major scale starts and stops, our 1 chord will always be major. Our 4 and 5 chords will always be major. Then our 2, 3, and 6 chords, they'll always be minor. And if you think about it, that makes sense, right? The most common chords that get used in music are usually the 1, 4, 5, and 6. The 7th doesn't get used a ton, and then the 2 and 3 get used, but maybe not as frequently. So in the key of C, if we've got a C major is our 1 chord, right? Then our 4 chord is an F. The 4th note of the C major scale is F, so here's our F chord. It's major. Then our 5 chord is a G. major. Then our sixth chord would be an A. It would not be major, it would be minor. And that makes sense. If you think if I played those chords, it would sound weird if they were different. Now, when you use open chords and you're trying to think about scale degrees, it actually becomes a little bit tough because open chords are kind of always rooted in a different spot, and it's not very clear visually what you're doing. So I like to use bar chords or even power chords to create kind of like a movable roadmap so that no matter what key I'm in, the chord shapes will always be in the same positions. So it would look like this. Let's find our one chord of a key. Let's say G. G major is the key that we're in. So that would follow the G major scale. So we find a G note on the low E string. That's what we're going to be basing the roadmap off of right here. If we were to work up the scale along the one string, it would look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. But it's not realistic to be playing bar chords all the way up and all the way down, especially if you've got to make quick changes, right? So what we do is we spread it onto the A string. So it would look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 7 would be there, but we're not even going to worry about that because most songs don't use that 7 chord, like I said. So you can see 1 right above it is 4. 2 right above it is 5. 3 right above it is 6. So everything lines up nice and perfect. Now, if we were to play bar chords, so hopefully you know some basic bar chord shapes, we can then apply our major minor formula. So our one chord would be major.
Feels like a good time to say something here. So, what he's talking about is something that I teach my students, and it is a good thing to learn, but it applies to only things from the major scale. And it definitely does not apply to every single song, because not every single song uses these kinds of chords, nor does every single song stay within the major scale. I listen to a lot of music that does not stay within a specific key. A lot of metal stuff does not stay in a specific key. So, yeah, anyway, that's why I do not like these statements where people say, any song, find the chords to any song. Like, well, you can't. It is impossible because it's impossible. It's not. Anyway, shut up. Play the video.
Right? 2 chord would be minor. So we go to the 2 position, then 3 chord minor. Now, instead of continuing to the 4th, we would go back to the A string for the 4th, which is right above the 1 like this, and we play a major chord shape. Then we continue up to the 5. And then for the 6th, we would play that minor shape, right? So rooted on the A string, we play this minor shape, which is an E minor. So that means that the chords that naturally exist inside the key of G are going to be G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor. Then we would have an F sharp diminished, but again, we're not even going to worry about that in this lesson. Now, if I took this whole concept and I shifted it around, let's say we wanted to go to A sharp, for example.
All right, I'm going to skip around and get to the part where he actually shows how to use this idea to figure out the chords in these songs. So here we go, skipping time. What's this next part? Identify the key. All right, here we go. We're going to see how we identify the key. Let's see, and he's going to give a quick example here. Then we have apply the roadmap, listen and locate, system summary, song example 1, 2. All right, here we go.
So step 1 is finding the key. So when we're listening to the song, we need to find the key before we can find the chords. And there are a few ways to do this, but I found the easiest way is to use a little scale shape, a little major scale shape, and to move it around until it sounds right. So the scale shape we'll use is one that I've used in many other lessons, which is just a simple major scale that looks like this.
This is a fine idea. I've taught people to do it this way as well. You start listening to a song, you start slapping some notes around until you find the note that fits, and then you kind of find like, okay, well, do we go up a whole step or a half step from this note that sounds good? And then basically you're looking for a pattern, a scale shape pattern that that you're very familiar with, and then see like, okay, well, this finally fits. So yeah, using this scale to figure out the key of something you're listening to is a fantastic idea, but the problem with that is the song you're trying to figure out has to be compatible with your basic major scale. What if you're listening to something that uses harmonic minor? This scale will not work. What if you're listening to something using the half whole diminished scale? Again, this scale will not work. So And that seems to be a big thing on YouTube with the big guitar lessons here. It's mostly about how to figure out things based off the major scale. I think I need to start doing more lessons on breaking away from the major scale, because I don't see much of that talked about. Not much at all. Anyway, let's continue.
And what I'm going to do is, as I listen to the music, I'm going to play that shape and I'm going to move it up and down. And there's only going to be one position on the entire fretboard where every single note I play sounds like it fits. Now, this is going to take some practice, a little bit of ear training. You're not going to get it instantly, but once you start connecting your fingers to your ears, you'll see that it comes pretty quick. Let me show you a quick.
I feel like that contradicts what he said about beginners can do this. Maybe not contradicts, but maybe more like confirms what I said. Like, you know, when he said earlier how, like, oh, beginners can use this technique to figure out these chords to almost any song. It's like, again, beginners have horrible ears. Most of them do. If you're a beginner and you have really good ears where you can tell if a note is in key or not, you are absolutely an exception. Remember, most new guitar players can't even tell their guitar is out of tune. I am absolutely guilty of that. Absolutely. For most of us, it takes a good long while to get the ear trained to be able to know if you're in key or not, or to even know if you're like bending things properly, or if your guitar is in tune, etc. Continuing.
Quick example. Okay, so we're listening to the song, we can hear the chords that are happening, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take our major scale shape, and I'm going to start moving it around until it kind of sounds good. So you can hear so far, nothing sounds right. That one definitely doesn't sound right. So you can hear right there, every note. Every note sounds like it fits inside of this key. To me, it sounds right. So since that is where that major scale sounded right, what that means is we just need to find the root note of that scale. So it was on the 12th fret, and it ended up here on the 15th fret. Low E string, 15th fret, which is the same as the 3rd fret, right? Because the octave repeats. So we go E, F, F sharp, G. So G, G major, the key of the song is in G major. So for step 2, now that we know the key of the song, now we get to use our little chord roadmap that I showed you earlier and apply it to the song. So because the key of the song is in G major, that means we find a G note on our low E string.
I've got to respond to some comments here. Way more information than 98% of beginners remember. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mr. Caleb, hello. Can you name a pop song that is not in the major scale? Can you name a pop song? Me neither. I guess it depends on what you consider pop. Like modern day pop? No, I can't. And then I would have to ask the question, and yes, I'm being pedantic here because, damn it, it's important. Well, there are plenty of pop songs that are using the minor scale from a minor perspective, or Mixolydian, or Dorian, but all those things come from the major scale anyway. So, is there a pop song that uses something like harmonic minor? I bet there is. I couldn't name one. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if there's got to be at least one. Got to be at least one. Especially if you consider rock music pop as well. It's usually sold in the same place in a record store. Jazz, yes. Okay, continuing.
Right there, the 3rd fret. And we find our diatonic chords, which are our chords that naturally occur inside of this key. So we've got G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor. And once you've identified those, we can go right to step 3, which is to listen and locate. And what I mean by that is use your ear to listen to the song, listen to where the chords change, because you can hear where the chords change, and try out the different chords to see which ones from that key, from your allowed chords, fit the song. So before I show you another example, we've got step 1, which is finding the key of the song. We've got step 2, which is identifying your chord roadmap. And then we've got step 3, which is to listen and locate which chords exactly from the key are being played. All right, so we've got the key, which is G major. We know that much so far. Then we've got our chords. So it's probably going to be what sounds like two of those chords. So it sounds like it's going from one chord to another chord and then just back to that same first chord. So let's try a few of them. Let's just start with the G, which sounds like it fits right away. Doesn't sound like any of those chords. And then, nope, nope. That sounds right. So it's that chord, G major, and it sounds like it's just going up to the 4 chord, which is a C major. So that was a pretty easy one. It only had 2 chords in the song, so it was pretty easy to find out. And the cool thing is that if you feel like things aren't quite going right, you can kind of just go back and start that step-by-step system over again, because there's not multiple right answers, right? It's definitely 2 chords from the key of G major, and it's definitely the G major and the C major. So let me show you how to do this on a couple more songs. Okay, so first I always listen to the chord progression first. Then we'll just start in a random spot. And that sounds right already. That is on the high E string at the 12th fret, which means E. And because E's kind of awkward up here, we can actually play it open. We can imagine that this is a bar. So E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sounds like it's the 6 minor chord, then the 4 chord, and the 1 chord. That sounds right. Every other chord would sound wrong there. So C sharp minor, A, E. So just to recap what happened there, we found that we were in the key of E major because that was the major scale that sounded right over the track, which starts and ends on an E note, that being an E, 12th fret of the high E string. And then our chord roadmap is kind of awkward because normally to go to an E, you'd have to like go here, but we're not gonna play 1, 4, 5, 6, all the way up there like that, right? It's a little bit unrealistic. So instead, we can move it all the way down, but it does give us access to 2 open chords, right? Because there's nowhere to put your bar right here, so we just have an open E chord. And then here we would have our 2, minor 2, which is an F sharp, then our minor 3, which is a G sharp, and then for our 4 chord, right above our E major, it would be an open chord as well, because we don't need to. And the chords change, and just through trial and error, you can find which chords fit. You're gonna be slow at it to start. You'll get faster the more you practice, to be honest. The way that the pros do it, they basically go through all these steps lightning fast. And the reason is a lot of popular music especially, it's just a bunch of patterns, and we've seen it before, and it's the same pattern, just in a slightly different spot, so it's very quick and easy for people to pick up on. So I'm gonna give you one more example, just so you really get the hang of the steps. Okay, so let's find the key. You can start random spot. Nope.
All right, well, I was originally going to, I am drinking too, well, I always got like several things here. I got like coffee, which is out, and so I got Mountain Dew as well. So I finished one, now I'm on the other. I would have very much, bleh. Let's start that sentence over again. I'm disappointed that real songs were not used here, and they're just like chord progressions. I don't know if he made the chord progressions, if he took these like backing tracks off of YouTube or what. But these were not real world examples, in my opinion, because he did not take actual songs and start to use his method to figure it out. Now, could he have done that? Sure. Maybe he didn't do it because he didn't want to deal with like copyright issues, demonetization, things like that, because that is a risk doing this sort of thing. If the owner of the song doesn't like you using said song for anything at all, well, then that part of the video might get muted. You might have to remove it from the video in order to have the video shown. And actually, one of the, I think the last stream I did when I was playing, none of this needs to be kept in the final video, by the way. My video editor, me talking about this thing being cut out here. When I was trying to find a specific part of a live guitar solo that Zakk Wylde did, I was basically just watching the concert clip during the stream. Well, when the stream got archived and uploaded or published, whatever, that chunk was not allowed to be shown to anybody, so the copyright holder basically banned it from my channel being seen. So yeah, if that's why this guy here decided not to use real songs to just avoid the copyright thing, I don't blame him. I would prefer, but still, I would prefer that he would take the chance and just try some songs and actually show it there. He is correct that pop songs tend to use the same kinds of progressions over and over again. A lot of metal songs do that as well, but we're talking about the more melodic stuff. Like, yeah, Iron Maiden uses the same type of chord progression a lot. A hell of a lot. But when you start getting into the more extreme stuff, more progressive stuff, it's this little trick that he's doing here will not work. So what he's showing here is great for pop music, rock stuff, things that are very simplistic. But when it comes to extreme metal, no, it's not going to work. When it comes to all kinds of, with jazz music, it's definitely not going to work. And he's also talking about, well, let me back step here for a second. So when it comes to jazz stuff, they usually have similar chord progressions in that genre, like the 2-5-1 is used a lot. However, he's only demonstrating basic major and minor chords. Jazz uses a ton of really nutty chords, like they have just 4, 5, 6 different intervals being played at the same time. So like if you're playing like a major chord over, I don't know, like a dominant 7 sharp 9, it's not gonna sound very good. So so for all those watching this right now, if you come across videos that claim anything like this, find the chords to any song on guitar, etc., to any song, it's just not real. It's not true. So if you try these things and you're like, why is this not working? Well, 1, your ear may not be good enough to figure it out yet. And 2, perhaps the song you're trying to figure out, it just will not work with this method. So 2 big reasons why this kind of thing may not work.
That sounds like it fits. So we've got 8th fret, so that's a C, right? So E, G, A, B, then there's no B sharp, so that would be a C. Okay, so let's find the C. C right here, right? Because we know low E string, C. Okay, so that sounds like it's going at the end. So what's the first part? It's a 2 chord, and then it goes to 1 chord. Okay, so we go D minor to C major, then up to the A minor, and then G major. So now, when you're first starting, you're not nearly going to be this fast, and don't feel like you have to be. It's going to take you time to develop your ear. Now, the songs I use as examples are really just doing the same chord progression throughout the entire song, but there are many songs out there that change chord progressions throughout the song, but usually they're always in the same key. So what that means is that when you get to, let's say, from the verse to the chorus, if the chords change, and you can tell that the chords change, you can skip step 1, right? You don't need to find the key, you know the key. Then you can go back to your roadmap, and you can listen, and you can locate the exact chords that are being played. Again, this is going to take you some time at first, and there'll probably be a lot of failure, but the more you do it, the faster you'll be. So one important thing to note with all this is that I didn't touch on non-diatonic chords, and that's because I can only fit so much information into one video before I totally overwhelm you. But there are songs and chord progressions out there that do pull chords that are outside of the key. So
all right, well, that's good that he's including this right now, but it also contradicts the video title that he used. So he's now saying how there are non-diatonic chords that can step out of key and all that, which is good. But again, that does not go along with find the chords to any song on guitar in 3 steps.
Non-diatonic, we talked about diatonic being chords that naturally occur, so ones that come from that major scale. But in a lot of modern popular music, you're not really going to see that too much. So we'll cover that in a part 2 of this video down the road. Now, tabs and sheet music are great. They're an amazing resource.
Okay, I think we're done with this video. So my little conclusion here, as far as what I'm thinking. I also get that titles such as the one I don't like are used because it gets clicks. It gets clicks and it gets views. So is there any way we can actually stop doing that? Even if it means sacrificing views? Because if we're going to make bold claims like that that are just not true, how is that actually truly helping those who wish to learn? Can it get people to learn important things? Sure. But I don't see why we have to always use outlandish claims in our video titles just to get clicks. I think it would be a lot better if everyone started being more honest in their titles in order to actually help people get this information the best way possible. Let's stop making bold bullshit claims in our titles, please. All right, so there we go. There's video number 1. We're done with that. Time to remove that from the watch later thing. Let's see, what's the next one I want to do? What did I say was in here? All right, well, this one here, we're going to watch 2 from Sam Jam Guitar. The first one, it says, how to figure out the key of a song by ear on guitar. So this was not too bad of a claim, I don't think, because it says just how to figure out the key of a song. He's not saying any song. He's just saying the key of a song. That seems to be okay. Yes, right, exactly. Lose 10 pounds with this one weird trick. I hate that shit. It's that fitness industry nonsense, but for music. Hate it.
Knowing how to work.
I'm actually wondering if I should even do this one, because this really isn't an outlandish claim. It's not an outlandish claim, so fuck it. I'm not doing this one. I have nothing against that title. Where was another one? There was another one with the title that bugged the crap out of me. Okay, we're gonna watch this one. Listen to me make gross sounds. Okay. I do not know Brian Kelly, although that sounds familiar. I may have seen something before. Is he another teacher? Brian Kelly, actually, isn't that the name of a guy we went to, had karate with? Obviously, he's not that Brian Kelly. I know there's something with music there. I don't remember. What has Brian Kelly done that I might know? All right, next thing. So, what are we gonna do here? The disclaimer thing, the intro to be edited in here. All right, so this video we're about to check out, I have never seen, so this is a true response to it. What I'd like to do is pretend like this person is in the room with me, so this way it's like I'm not going too overboard in any kind of disagreement or, not trash talking and becoming too much of an asshole. That might need to get bleeped out. YouTube does not like swearing in the first 30 seconds anymore. And the video might not get pushed out. So anyway, this is titled Greg Howe, the best exercise to improve your speed. So I wanted to watch this video because of the title, claiming that this is the best exercise to improve your speed. So when I see something like that, to me that implies there is absolutely nothing else better than this to improve your speed. Okay, well, I think there are a lot of things that anyone can do in order to improve your speed. Also, it depends on the riff or the lick that you're working on. Whether you are a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, like how good is your ear, how well can you hear rhythm, physical limitations, things like that. So that's why I'm skeptical of this title. I feel there's several things that can be done to help improve your speed. But perhaps this exercise will be fantastic. Will it be the best? I don't know. Perhaps that's just an opinion-based thing. Maybe it's the best one that they use. And I don't know if it's Greg Howe actually teaching this, because the channel this is from is Dong Guitar Tutorial. Dong. Yes. So there we go. So I don't know if Greg Howe says this is the best or if it's just Dong. I don't know. Zombie guitar? What is zombie guitar? I don't know. All right. Let's get into it. Nope.
Hey guys, Greg Howe back again with another sound advice with Diodario. And one of the questions I get asked a lot is, what do I do to warm up? What's my warm-up routine, you know? And the truth is, I don't really have one. I don't have this time frame where I sort of sit and do specific exercises. I don't have that. But what I will do sometimes is certain exercises when I need to. Like, for instance, if I'm in a situation where, and I've been in this situation many times, where I have a clinic and we're late and scheduling is strange. I'm getting off of the train and I have to go right to the music store, and it's freezing out, and I got to set my pedal board up, and then I've got 10 minutes, if that, before I start. And I need something that's going to get my fingers moving. And this particular warm-up exercise that I stumbled across, I don't know where it came from exactly, but I do this when I'm in those times, and it does seem to get my left hand moving pretty quick. Let me just show you what it is. I'm going to come up here to the 10th fret, the high E string in this case. And there's a few different versions of this, so we'll start with the simplest one first. And I'm just going to play, I'm positioned at 10. I've got 10, 12, 13, and 15. So it's going to be all 4 fingers involved. And it's kind of a strange exercise at first if you're not used to using all 4 of these fingers together. But once it gets comfortable, it's pretty cool. So I'm going to start with the note that's on the 13th fret, or 3rd finger note. And I'm going to play that with a downstroke, and that's the only pick that's going to be involved in this whole initial exercise here. So it's a 7-note exercise. I play a downstroke, I play a hammer-on with my 4th finger, I do a pull-off back to 13, another pull-off to 12, and then a hammer-on to 13, and then pull all the way off to 10. So there's this sequence slowly. So I'm just going to gradually pick that up in speed, and you'll see that if you try this, you'll notice quickly that you'll feel it in your forearms, and it'll warm you up. It'll get your fingers moving. Let me just see what we can do with this. So there's the exercise. Now, if you get really comfortable,
I just want to try it. I am not used to doing 4-finger licks. So I would metronome this thing up in order to get more out of it, because I suck at 4-finger licks. I just don't use them. Just never felt really come across anything I've written that really needed it. And sometimes like those 4-finger stretches, especially with my wrist issues, they're just a bad idea. And so far, like, Greg Howe is not claiming this is the best exercise to improve your speed. He even said himself it's just a warm-up thing he'll do if he's at a pinch. So what's with the title? I don't think Greg Howe has anything to do with this title.
with that, you notice I'm only picking one time. I'm only picking on that 13th fret. And then so the other 6 notes are the result of hammer-ons and pull-offs. If you get really good at this and it starts to feel comfortable, attempt to try to do it with no picking at all. Then you know your left hand's really working. Anyway, so we can add on to that and get some other versions of that. So and the next phase for me, again, this is all just trying to get my left hand going quickly, would be a similar exercise where we're going to add 2 notes onto the sequence. So instead of having 7 notes, we'll have 9 notes. And we do that by having an additional hammer-on to the B string, in this case, the 13th fret of the B string. So initial exercise. And instead of starting over, I'm going to hammer on to the 13th fret of the B string now. So, and then I'm going to go back to the high E string, 10th fret, and that's going to be with an upstroke. Now, it doesn't have to be an upstroke. The more notes there are, and the less picking there is in a sequence, the less important the direction of the pick is. I started with a downstroke, so I'm going to end with an upstroke, because this interesting thing about the sequence now is that even though there's only 2 picks in it, one of them's at the very beginning, the other one's at the very end, so they are consecutive when you play that, when you get it up to speed. So let me just play this a little bit, and you'll see what I mean. So anyway, so that's basically the second version of this. And we'll do one more, and this is, again, just to round it out, and there's a bunch of variations that we could do off this, but I just want to do a quick one just to get all 4 fingers moving at the same time. Sometimes people find that that's a quick way to warm up. So let's do one more where this one will actually be divisible by 4. So if you're a guy that likes to practice with metronomes, this will work out a little bit better. I'm going to take basically a blues scale combined with this, what I'm going to see as a Dorian scale in the key of D. Right, so that's how I'm going to view this in my mind. It doesn't have to be. So I'll just play it slowly instead of talking. Here's the beginning again. So all 9 of those notes are exactly the same as the second exercise that we did. Now I'm going to go back to the B string, pull off all 3 of these notes. So I'm going to hit the C note, pull all the way off to 10, so C, B, and A. So let me just play that so far. And now I'm going to play either the G note on the G string or the G sharp note, depending on which one you like. It doesn't matter which one I like the G sharp because I like that blues sound. But here's the sequence. To get back to where we started again, play the 10th fret of the B string, and then hammer on the 13th, and we play the 10th fret of the D string. So I'm just going to play it slow. It'll be much clearer and easier to follow when you just see it and hear it. So here we go. That's the sequence. Anyway, so there it is. That's my sound advice number 2. Have fun with it, and happy jamming.
I don't even know if I should make this into an edited thing. It's going to be like a really, really quick thing. What Greg Howe showed in there is a fantastic exercise to work on. If that's, if you like the sound of it, yeah, that's a great legato exercise. And I'm looking through this thing. I'm just taking a look at these videos on this channel right now. Like, I want to know, did he just like upload somebody else's video to his channel? because he's got most of the videos here are of himself playing, you know, doing something. But like what? There, look at this. It's like here's him playing. That's actually him. Okay. But what is this? Why is his name on there? Because like that's all right. So that's Dong's studio there. That's his studio there. Looking like his studio there. Studio here. But this Eric Johnson thing, that's totally different. Does anyone recognize this? This Eric Johnson thing? What about Guthrie Gold? Like, no, it's a completely other different thing there. Like,
column about string bending. I think the important thing about string bending is it's something that's kind of uniquely awesome when you apply it to the guitar.
Yeah, I think this guy, I mean, he does have a low subscriber count. I sure as shit do not have a high subscriber count. Not even close. But it's like, I get the feeling he is uploading other people's instruction videos to his channel in order to grow his channel. Possibly he did it because he really likes the video and just wants to share it. I don't know. So, yeah, but this video has over 100,000 views. And I think a big part of it is because it's called the best exercise to improve your speed. Well, let's end it with this. There is no one best exercise to improve your speed, period. You can improve your speed with any kind of exercise so long as you push the speed. That's that. So, this title, or this video entitled, The Best Exercise to Improve Your Speed, that is bullshit. That is bullshit. No. Stop making these titles. Stop it. It's an exercise to improve your speed, and that's it. So much for not trying to not sound like an asshole. Whoops. No, not that. Alright, remove this from the watch later. Alright, what's the next one? Was that 2 videos so far? I'm just looking through videos I got there. See which one would be. Oh, here we go. This one, absolutely.
How to play 3,000% faster in just 10 minutes.
Did y'all hear that? So this is from Brad Harrison Music. Far more subscribers than I have, so this person is clearly doing much better than me. I think I did a response video to a different one before, which I liked what he had to say in there. But I'll tell you this. Oh, I should do the disclaimer thing first, right? Okay. This is the first time watching this video. So my response is going to be 100% genuine. I don't know what it's going to be like. We might find some interesting information in here. But with a claim of play 3,000% faster in just 10 minutes of practice, I got to see what it says. Because I will tell you right now, that's absolute BS. Nobody is going to be able to increase their speed 3,000%. 3,000%. 3,000%? Can we do some math here? 3,000%. Now, this goes back to this whole, like, if you make a claim like this in your title, like, is this a good thing in order to get more views? Or does this cause any issues for those who actually are struggling with getting faster? 3,000%. Let's see. Got a little calculator here. Let's see how bad I am at math right now. So obviously, if you're playing like, oh, for God's sake, even if you're playing, I don't know, 16th notes at 60 beats per minute, if you, it's just something so simple as like going up by 100%. What's 100% of that? That would be, you know, just adding 60, right? So if it was, God, what the hell would that be? So that would be an addition. So if it was 100%, it would just be going from 60 to 120. So 300% would basically be 60 times 3, so that's 180 beats per minute. So that would be 300% because you're 3 times as fast. So if you would be doing 300 to 3,000, what the fuck could that be? 1,800 beats per minute? Am I right here? Can somebody please check my math on that one? I don't even know how to use this damn thing like that. 3,000%. Yeah, it's whatever. I was right? Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Caleb. So, yeah. Dude, come on. Why make this claim? Bullshit. Nobody is ever going to increase their speed 3,000%. But hey, let's see. Let's see what it said. There might be good information in here, but, you know.
I know what you're thinking, but hear me out.
All right, let's hear them out.
Let's say you're learning a new scale. You want to be able to play it quickly and accurately. If you can play this very slow version of the scale, you can learn to play this very fast version. And
Okay.
there's a practice technique to get you there in just 10 minutes of playing. To do that, we're going to exploit the brain's incredible ability to learn and replicate actions and reactions. There are a number of systems involved in this type of procedural memory, but most people commonly refer to this phenomenon as muscle memory. You might have heard of muscle memory. The term is often used to refer to how a specific action or series of actions can be performed very easily, with little conscious effort after many repetitions. Sometimes it happens almost by accident. We memorize and reproduce catchphrases and cliches effortlessly and without intention. If you're given the cue, your brain can't help but complete the phrase, like a fish out of water. A penny saved is a penny earned. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Maybe you didn't mean to learn this reflex, but it happened all the same through repeated exposure. Some skills take a bit more conscious effort to acquire, but become incredibly easy. Things like tying your shoes, riding a bike, driving a car, typing on a keyboard, and a huge variety of sporting skills. These are all physical skills that may feel awkward at first, but after much careful practice and repetition, they become fluid and unconscious. Memorization is similar. If you've ever had to commit a poem to memory or learn the lines in a play, you probably had to read the passage many times over. Some difficult sections might have demanded more time and attention, but eventually, saying the words became almost like a reflex. These are all examples of how the brain can be trained to do useful stuff in a way that's consistent, unconscious, and easy. It's practically a superpower. You can use this phenomenon to learn any number of interesting or useful skills, like juggling, knitting, or any number of things you'd have to learn or memorize for school or your job. But today, let's apply these techniques to learning music. The technique for getting faster at playing music is simple and intuitive, but unfortunately, it's often poorly executed. If you do it right, you're going to get faster and maintain accuracy. If you don't, well...
Oops. Anyway, I'm not going to interrupt yet.
No guarantees. Now, I do have a specific and detailed method to achieve this massive increase in speed, but it's really all based on one simple idea. Start slow and increase your tempo in very small increments while being certain to avoid errors. It's fairly obvious.
Well, I do agree with that. That's absolutely what I preach. Start slow and increase your tempo in small increments. Well, yes, while being certain to avoid errors, meaning it needs to sound good as you increase the speed. So, although I very much disagree with the title of the video, this point right here, I do 100% agree with so far.
But underestimated, because those small increases really add up. The simple fact is that it takes a long time to play a passage at a slow tempo, but each time you increase the tempo, it also takes less time to perform that passage. So, you'll have to spend more total practice time on the slower tempos because each note takes longer to play. But if you do invest time in the slower tempos, muscle memory will ensure that the faster tempos are really easy. Now, if you're unimpressed because you think you already do this, give me a few moments to explain why maybe you think you do this, but you probably don't. There are two common problems. The first is not starting at a slow enough tempo. Many
With that one too, not starting at a slow enough tempo for sure. It's like people will ask, well, why should I start at 60 beats per minute? Like, because it gives you plenty of time to really think about every little thing that you're doing in order to get the most out of what you're trying to learn. So I do agree, starting at a slow enough tempo is important. Maybe a lot slower than you think you should, which is why I go with 60, because that's a full second to play what you're trying to play. That's a decent amount of time. Some people even tell me, or students will tell me, that the 60 beats per minute is sometimes harder than like the 80 or 100, because you really got to focus and make sure all your stuff is correct. So like, even had one guy recently ask, it's like, why should I start at 60 when I can play what I'm working on at 120 beats per minute already? It's like, well, if your goal is to get to 130 on something, and let's say you can play it at 120, but you cannot go any faster than that, that's because you need more work getting the whole pattern down, hearing it well, and all that stuff, and building that thing up. So yeah, you do need to start slow enough with things that you're trying to improve on when it comes to getting as fast as you can, for sure. 100% agree with that.
musicians practice at a sort of medium tempo that isn't slow enough to allow the level of consistency, accuracy, and concentration necessary to make huge long-term gains. It's not hard to understand why people resist going so slow. It can be kind of boring. But starting at a very slow tempo allows you to focus on each note and movement of your body so you can play with 100% accuracy and confidence.
Agree. 100% agree. Yeah, like he's saying here, you know, people get so impatient with this. Like, they want it fast, they want it now. It's like, well, all right, let's say you start moving fast and whatnot. Like, what else can you do with it? Like, is it actually in control? Are you actually playing it accurately? You know, like... And I don't know how he's going to advise or recommend building things up, but... For those watching the video, you know, look, it doesn't take very long to go from the slow speed up to the fast. Like, if you're working on a 4-bar pattern, 16th notes, or hell, even 8th notes, a 4-bar pattern using all 8th notes, and you start at 60 and you go up in 5 beat per minute increments every time you play it correct, it's going to take like 10 minutes to max out. Like, we're talking like close to 300 beats per minute. Maybe 15 minutes, depending on how many mistakes that you make. Like, is it really that bad to devote 15 minutes working it up? 15 minutes. A lot of times I'll do this stuff and it takes me 10 or less. And if you watched me do like practice live streams, you've seen me do that. I'll go from 60 up to a silly tempo in like 10 minutes. It doesn't take very long. It really doesn't. Yep. Start slow and get that technique. Now, some people may ask, like, okay, well, what about the technique? What about how the technique changes as you go faster? All the more reason why I advise start slow, work it up, make sure it sounds good, and adjust your technique, like for guitar, right? You know, adjust your picking technique, your hand position, and all that stuff as you go faster in order to play the notes, make them sound the way you want them to sound. So technique will adjust as you go from slow to medium to fast to insane, right? But that just because the technique is different going insanely fast does not mean you sacrifice the slow. Because the slow, even though the technique changes, the notes don't. And you have to train your ears in order to hear insanely fast stuff correctly. You have to. Because if you can't hear if you're playing things correct, how do you know you're playing it correct? Just winging it? I have yet to meet someone who just wings it and actually nails something correctly. It just doesn't happen. Anyway, let's continue.
The second problem is increasing tempo too quickly.
Yep. That's why I advise, again, 5 beats per minute. No more than 5 beats per minute. You can do it less, but don't go more than 5 beats per minute. 5 beats per minute quicker. Because, like I've talked about, like the whole idea with like weight training, like if you want to have, I can't do this, but if you want to have like a 500-pound squat, you don't go from 100 pounds one day and then 200 the next, 300 the next, 4, and then 5. Your body cannot adapt to it that quickly. You need to go 100, 110, 120, 130, or even 100, 105, 110, 115, 120. So nice and slow, build that strength up. Same thing with the speed, making sure it stays accurate. You got to build it up nice and slow. But all right, continuing.
Let's say you do start at a slow tempo and you play the passage pretty perfectly, but then increase the tempo a bit too ambitiously, and you play it a little less perfectly. But you don't worry about the minor errors and carry on increasing the tempo.
That's such a big mistake people continue to make, and something I harp on with students all the time. They ignore those little mistakes and then they continue on. It's like, no. If there's a mistake, then what you just did is all trash. That's how I feel you gotta look at it. Consider it all trash when that little mistake comes in. Because if you are not proud of what you just played, if it is not good enough to be on your album, it wasn't good. Remember, and I believe this guy actually is, he says the same thing. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent, therefore only perfect practice makes perfect. If you practice and allow mistakes to happen, and you don't correct them, well, you just got good at making mistakes. Do not allow mistakes. They will happen, but you just got to address them properly.
Predictably, the errors only get worse at faster tempos. Eventually, you can't increase the tempo anymore because you're just making too many mistakes.
Yep.
So, what do you do to avoid these problems? First, start slower than you need to. Start
Yes.
well below the tempo at which you can play with 100% accuracy.
Yes.
Second, increase the tempo in small and specific increments. That way you'll hardly notice the increases in tempo as you progress.
Yes.
Finally, use a metronome to help manage your tempo.
Yes.
A metronome, in case you're unfamiliar, is a device that dictates specific tempos which are measured in beats per minute. You can pick one up at your local music store or get an app for your phone. The metronome is going to be a crucial tool in making this practice technique work.
Yes.
Speaking of which, let's get to it. Let's say you're learning a new scale. Assuming you already know your fingerings, it's probably pretty easy to play that scale in whole notes at 60 beats per minute. That's pretty slow. You've got 4 very slow beats to look at the next note and figure out how to move your fingers before it's time to execute the next note. Whole notes at 60 beats per minute should be a very doable and even boring tempo for even a novice musician. In fact, if these first few exercises are easy and boring, that's kind of a good problem. It means you're in control and building muscle memory for the faster tempos that are yet to come. Now, play that scale 6 more times in whole notes, but increase the tempo by 10 beats per minute each time until you get to 120 beats per minute. Note that each iteration takes a bit less time to play. By the time you complete all 7 exercises, you've doubled your tempo and the whole process takes less than 5 minutes. It was slow and deliberate, and maybe not super exciting, but it laid the foundation of familiarity to build your technique and muscle memory. Now, because playing whole notes at 120 beats per minute is the same note density as half notes at 60 beats per minute, that's the next step. Play the scale in half notes at 60 beats per minute. Then, follow the same pattern as before. Play the scale 6 more times, increasing the tempo by 10 beats per minute each time until you reach 120 beats per minute. The second set of exercises takes half the time as the previous set at about 2.5 minutes, and you've doubled your tempo again. Just like before, half notes at 120 beats per minute is basically the same as quarter notes at 60 beats per minute. So, we switch to quarter notes and continue the same pattern as before. Then, repeat it again with 8th notes, and again with 16th notes. And that's the whole exercise. If you're able to complete this entire set of exercises, you'll have played the scale 35 times and exponentially increased your tempo by doubling it 5 times. That works out to 32 times faster than the original tempo, also known as 3,200%, all in less than...
Is that really equal out there? Does that really equal out to 3,000%? You clever bastard. Does it? I'll just have to take his word for it. Anyone in the live stream, you want to confirm that math? Anyone in the comments section watching the edited version of this video, would you like to check the math there? Is that really over 3,000 whatever percent he said it was? All right, well, I suppose if you take that very specific thing of whole notes at 60 to 16th notes at 120, if that's really 3,000%, fine. It's a very specific example, sir. Anyway, what was I going to say here? So, I do like what he's talking about. As far as like things I recommend that are different, I mean, it really depends on what it is you're trying to do. It's a very, yeah, like that Mile High Shred Metronome Method ebook. You can get it for free. Just go to milehighshred.com or just do a search for Mile High Shred Metronome Method. You should find that quickly. Look at the description of this video and there's going to be a link to it as well. But you can get the thing for free. It details stuff like this, like where to start in terms of tempo, which is almost always 60, when to increase the speed, and by how much do you increase the speed, and when do you go from playing things like 8th notes to 16th notes, you know, when do you make those subdivision changes. So one thing that he has here that I always recommend being different, it's like, yes, let's do the quarter note thing instead. Like, if you are working up the quarter notes of anything, maybe it's just the scale like he's got here, if you just go from 60 to 120 and then at 120 you go back to 60 and you change it to 8th notes, it's probably too soon. And that's if, like, are you struggling to get the you know, whatever piece of music you're working on. So let's say the scale. Let's say that scale you're struggling to actually get going as fast as you want. So instead of switching subdivisions once you hit the 120, my thing is take those quarter notes up to at least 240, then switch to 8th notes back down at 60. So it's basically taking his idea here that he's discussing, which I so far 100% agree with. I just don't like his title. Unless we're talking about this specific thing like he said here. I just lost my train of thought because I saw my phone turn on for a second there. Somebody sent me a text message. Anyway, the hell was I going to say? Yeah, so quite often, like, what I notice if you switch to the subdivision too soon is you are not... I don't want to say this. Video editors, I'm starting this part over again. Okay, so yeah, taking his scale example here. So you're trying to work the scale up and down, right? And you're starting with the quarter notes. So you get from 60 to 120, and instead of switching over to 8th notes already, my thing is take it up to 240, okay? So not only does this give you more time with that scale in the smaller increments of like notes per second, and again, I recommend going up 5 beats per minute, not 10. I think it does work out better that way. In fact, if you have the time, going up in 1 beat per minute increments, man, you can make a lot of change with that, especially on music you are having a big struggle with. Like, it's great for breaking plateaus on certain things when going up in 1 beat per minute increments instead of 5. But anyway, so yeah, go, if you quarter notes, take whatever it is from 60 to at least 240 before you switch over to the 8th note thing, because 240 beats per minute with quarter notes is the same notes per second as doing 8th notes at 120. So going from the quarter notes from 60 to 120, then switching to the eighth notes right away, you may not be prepared to get from 60 to 120 with eighth notes yet. So basically, I'm taking this idea he's talking about here and expanding it, taking even more time to go from point A to point B. So that's my thing. Take it to at least 240 when it comes to working quarter notes up before switching to eighth notes. Take your eighth notes, work that up from 60 to 240 before switching over to 16th notes. And then after that 16th notes, you're fine. You don't have to worry about 32nd notes because, well, those are crazy fast. But you might want to work on them. But anyway, let's continue here.
And 10 minutes of practice time. Now, this practice technique is a solid one, but it does have a few caveats. First, don't increase your tempo unless you've played the previous exercise flawlessly.
Yes. Yes. Agree. Way too often I have students do that. They're like, oh, well, I thought it was good enough. It's like, there is no good enough. Either you played it right or you didn't. Play it right. If it wasn't perfect, you don't move on. You will benefit so much from being strict with yourself. Practice like you're recording.
You don't want to practice mistakes because you'll learn them. If you're practicing mistakes, back up a few exercises or even all the way back to the beginning and try again.
All right, I want to rewind that. I'm going to slow this back down to regular playback speed. He just said something that is so important. So important.
Exercises, you'll have played this increased your tempo, also known as. Now, this practice technique is a solid one, but it does have a few caveats. First, don't increase your tempo unless you've played the previous exercise flawlessly. You don't want to practice mistakes because you'll learn them.
You don't want to practice mistakes because you will learn them. Did you hear that? Let's say it again.
Practicing mistakes previous exercise flawlessly. You don't want to practice mistakes because you'll learn them. Unless you've played the previous exercise flawlessly. You don't want to practice mistakes because you'll learn them.
You hear that? See? You don't want to practice mistakes because you will learn them. Yes, mistakes will happen. And here I went into this video. Well, I'll say that for later. I'll save it for the end. What I'm thinking. Yes, absolutely.
Practicing mistakes, back up a few exercises or even all the way back to the beginning and try again. It might be a bit boring, but it's worth laying a strong foundation in your brain rather than playing quickly and inaccurately.
Yeah, quickly and inaccurately? No, stop it. That's not good.
Second, the amount of progress that you can make in any single practice session is not limitless.
The amount of progress you can make in any single session is not limitless.
It may not be possible to complete this whole set of exercises in one session, and you may hit a point where you can't go any faster without making errors. If you're having trouble progressing, take a break for a few hours or even a day and try again later. Of course, this technique works well in the short term, but if you want your new skill to stick long term, you'll need to review. Maybe you don't need to do the whole process every day, but it's still good to start slow and ramp up the speed. A good practice schedule might look like this. On the first day, you do all the exercises. On the second day, maybe you play slow whole notes once and then skip straight to half notes. Then do all the rest of the exercises. On day 3, do slow whole notes once and slow half notes once, and then do all the rest of the exercises. If all is going well, you can keep up a similar pattern with day 4 and 5. To be a good musician is to embrace maintenance and repetition. Remember to go back to basics and play slowly if you're having any trouble at all. But also keep in mind, with this practice schedule, each day takes less time than the day before it. If you're working on learning a scale for music class, you're only looking at a few minutes of practice broken up over a few days. If you wanted to take it further, you could use this technique to learn all your major scales. Such a project might look a bit overwhelming at first, but it's really only a few hours of practice, which you could easily break up over a couple of weeks. If you already know all your major scales, think about learning a new scale, like harmonic minor or altered. Or you could use this technique to tackle a difficult passage in a piece of music you're learning. Maybe you're working on something like this. Most of it looks pretty easy, but there's that tricky part at the end. What if, instead of approaching it in the way it's written, what if you thought of it like this? Or this? It's the same notes but written differently, and it's way less intimidating. If you took it through the technique we used on the major scale, you can have it up to tempo in just a few minutes. Even if you're having trouble with this section, you can easily practice it by turning.
Wait. I think there's a caveat there. I would have loved for him to say. So yeah, like taking the 16th note thing, breaking it down into eighth notes or quarter notes or even the whole notes or half notes, right? That's a fantastic thing to do. And that's actually something I talk about in a few videos or a few lessons I've done on Patreon, where it's like, how do you take this riff or this lick you're stuck on? How do we break it down into easier and easier playable pieces so you can start making progress again? So I don't know how fast this thing is here, but because there's no tempo listed. But just because you follow that thing of do the whole note from 60 to 120 and then the quarter note or half note 60 to 120, then quarter note 60 to 120 and so on, doesn't guarantee you're going to get that piece of music all the way up to that to the speed. Yeah, God, I can't talk. Just because you follow that pattern does not guarantee you will get that passage of music up to speed within just a few minutes. Like, that has to be within your capabilities in order for that to happen. So that's like a fitness thing right there. People say, oh, 3 weeks to six packs, or 3 weeks to shredded abs. Like, well, you already have to be 3 weeks away from having abs show if you're going to have abs in 3 weeks. That's all there is to it. So you have to already be a few minutes away from being able to pull off something like this in order to have it done in a few minutes. So I would have liked that to be worded differently, but I'm just being picky. But hey, part of these response videos is to just add a bit more information, add a bit more help. But yeah, it makes sense what he's saying. Absolutely.
All the notes into quarter notes, or half notes. It's easy to underestimate the power of incremental improvement. You have to remember that most things are kind of boring at first, but if you endure that, the payoff can be huge. Mastering new skills takes a bit of time, but if you spend it well, maybe less time than you think. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and check the description for more videos. Thanks for watching.
All right, so yeah, what I was going to say there. So the title of this video absolutely got under my skin because that is a silly claim. That is a silly claim. Because, well, as he showed in the video, it's got to be a very specific thing of this so-called 3,000% increase. But what he talks about here in order to improve your speed and stuff, fantastic advice. Absolutely, absolutely agree. My approach is slightly different. I think I take things a bit further in terms of moving up slower and pushing the metronome speed faster, but the general idea is the same. I like this Brad Harrison. Whatever that other video was I watched from him before, I remember I really liked that. So, yeah, great stuff. Really is. I really think it is, despite the title. Okay, I am going to hit the restroom, and then we're going to watch another video. So my plan was to stream for 2 hours. We're about... Well, basically we got like 44 minutes left here. So we can definitely get at least one more video done. Let's see. There we go. There's that thing. Okay. Here, we'll have... No, not that. Oh, to hell with it. Alright, I'll be right back. Bathroom break is done. Let's see what we got here. Oh, for the love of God, I keep getting so much spam these days. All right, anyway, let's see. We got time for at least one more. What's it gonna be? All right, so let's remove that. Move much later. All right, we need something somewhat small. All right, I think we already watched this video. No. All right. Well, no, there was another I saved. Why does this one say I've watched it? I don't remember watching this. Well, let's see. Who's still there? Who's still in the chat? All right, we're going to check out. This says I've watched it. I don't remember watching it. What is this one?
I got a confession to make. For many years of my guitar playing life, I had this embarrassing secret that I didn't want to share with anybody, and I kind of hoped that nobody would ever find out. But I figured, hey, every great guitar player has one. I mean, after all, for Paul Gilbert, it's always been sweep picking.
Sweep picking was and is nearly impossible for me.
So in the thumbnail, he has Paul Gilbert, Yngwie Malmsteen, and John Petrucci, and it says their Achilles heel. So yeah, I don't remember watching this. So we're going to watch this now. All right, Mr. Taylor's still there. Good. Hello. All right, so this is the first time watching this. It's called More Guitar Players Should Come Clean About This. And in the thumbnail for this video, it shows John Petrucci, Yngwie Malmsteen, and Paul Gilbert's, and it says their Achilles heel. So I'm curious what this Achilles heel is, and what How to Practice Guitar says we need to come clean about. So perhaps I'm about to be outed, and I need to come clean about something. I don't know. Let's find out.
I got a confession to make. For many years of my guitar playing life, I had this embarrassing secret that I didn't want to share with anybody, and I kind of hoped that nobody would ever find out. But I figured, hey, every great guitar player has one. I mean, after all, for Paul Gilbert, it's always been sweep picking.
Sweep picking was and is nearly impossible for me. If I move the distorted sound, I really have to. I can't wait till they're over. I'm going something like a play.
For John Petrucci, it's been inside picking.
Now, my right hand immediately starts to tense up as soon as I encounter that inside of the string technique. This is usually a problem for most guitar players. Some guys have this taken care of, and we'll have to shoot them all.
And for Yngwie, the hardest thing...
Did he just say he's asked to shoot them all? Wait, what?
For him to...
Taken care of, and we'll have to shoot them all.
And for Yngwie, the hardest thing for
He did say we have to shoot them all. All right.
him to do has always been, what was it?
Everything's easy for him.
Oh. Thanks, Paul. Anyway, for me...
I'll tell you this, Yngwie's Achilles heel, what he can't do, he can't go from his pick being at this angle to that angle. He can't. Like, everything he does is in this, well, let's say downward pick slanting motion or upward escape motion. He's always in this style of picking. He like never goes to this. It's always like this. So that's what Yngwie can't do. He can't pick with his hand going down, out like that.
The biggest challenge has always been playing scales straight up and down without any sequencing pattern applied, like this.
See, he is an economy picker, whereas I would alternate pick that, but he's right. Just going up and down a scale, and I tell students this, it's tough. It is tough. Straight up and down a scale is very difficult.
And that was already at the time when I could rip through scale sequencing patterns on the same scale shapes like this. Or play licks like this. So it wasn't a case of not being able to pick fast or struggling to keep my hands in sync or any of that stuff. Something peculiar was happening when I tried to play scales strictly up and strictly down that was giving me a hard time. For the longest time, I simply swept that problem under the rug and pretended like it didn't exist. That was until I got into teaching. And before I knew it, I had a bunch of students coming to me with the exact same problem I had. They kept asking me, Mike, how do I get my scales faster? And they play a scale, a 3-note per string scale like the one I showed you, and they said they couldn't speed things up. That's when I decided to put my thinking cap on and figure out what the heck was happening that was making scales, straight scales, so hard to play.
So I remember Troy Grady addressed this, and this is where he talked about the issues of doing the whole two-way pick slanting or two-way string escape motions. So, but he, I don't know this man's name, the Practice Guitar Now guy, the guy who's on the screen, not me, him. If he economy picks it though, I wonder if he changed it up, and maybe this is his, like, he learned to economy pick to address this situation or address the issue with the whole scale thing. Let's see.
Play. And here's what I found. One of the biggest reasons playing scales straight up and down feels much harder has to do with a very high frequency of changes in the arm position as you go from string to string. Think of it like this. When you're doing tremolo picking on one note, lack of two-hand synchronization demands aside, one of the reasons why tremolo picking is easy to do fast is because your arm is in the fixed position the entire time. You can simply plop your forearm down in whatever spot is comfortable for you and then just keep your pick as close as possible to the string you're doing tremolo picking on, and you're good to go. You're pretty much guaranteed to pick at least much, much faster, comparatively speaking, than you can play scales or even scale sequences. Now,
That's a good point. That's a good point. Like, yeah, having to, I think what he's getting on here is like, or getting on about, like, do something like that. Because you're not having to do something like where you have your hand here and then here. Well, yeah, like having to, like you have to really, what am I trying to say here? Like, change what string you're picking on quickly absolutely is a pain in the butt. So it's like if you were to do something like, I don't know, let me just use, what kind of chord do I want to use here? If I pick that less and do something like, so what did I start off with, like, so basically I'm picking each note or each string 16 times. Even though I'm like really pushing like my endurance at that point to keep that up, that's still easier to do versus like hitting each note or each string 4 times. So gotta mute big time over here so I can change strings and have it sound pretty clean. That was weird. It looked like the stream froze for a second. Hopefully it's still okay. Anyway, now if I was to play each note twice or each string twice, yeah, I'm not gonna get that quick. I cannot play accurately hitting each string twice at the same speed I was just doing for like the, even just the 4 times each string. So yeah, he absolutely makes a very good point there. It's just you're having to change where your hand is in relation to the strings very quickly when you're just going up and down a scale. 100% agree.
When you're playing horizontal scales and scale sequences, when you're going up and down on the same pair of strings like this, it is comparatively harder because, of course, you have to sync both hands up now. It's much harder than just doing tremolo on one note. And you do have to do some string changes. However, the demands for moving the arm are still very, very small because, by and large, you can actually do the string changes with the wrist here if you're using wrist dominant picking that I talked about in my other videos on this channel. The problem isn't necessarily in the string changes themselves, is that you have to readjust the arm position, the forearm here, very frequently when you play a scale straight up and down. Because if you have a scale sequence that has frequent string changes, but most of them can be done with the wrist, like this one, it is still much easier to play than a straight scale going straight up and straight down. Because in the pattern I just played, I was doing a lot of these string changes using my wrist. So that decreases the frequency of the number of times I have to adjust my arm position, which makes it easier to play fast and keep my hands in sync. This big advantage exists on pretty much every scale sequence you play. Now back to scales. As a consequence of having to move your arm with a high frequency to change strings every few notes, you run into a pretty interesting two-hand synchronization challenge. If you are playing 3-note per string scales using strict alternate picking, aka the way they used to play scales back in the 80s, this challenge becomes even more obvious. Take for example the A major scale. You're playing your downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, and then your pick has to travel around the A string, then get back inside the space of the strings and then go in the other direction to play the A string with an upstroke. Your fretting hand finger, in the meantime, only has to go from the A note here to the D note here. So it travels a very short distance, your fretting hand finger does, while your picking hand and the pick has to travel a much larger distance. And that is a big reason why it is harder to keep your hands in sync. This problem becomes less obvious and easier to deal with in scale sequences because you have more time that you spend on each individual string, even when the notes are going by fast, which means there are fewer occurrences of the problem to begin with. You have more time for your brain to prepare your hands to do the right motions when the problem does come up. Now, to be fair, the same kind of problem also happens when you do 3-note per string scale using directional picking. However, that problem happens in reverse. When you do the last downstroke on the 6th string and you go to play the first note on the A string with another downstroke, now the picking motions actually becomes almost smaller than the fretting hand motion. So it is still a challenge to keep your hands in sync on string changes even with directional picking. It is just a much smaller challenge because you're not dealing with motions that are way too big like alternate picking to begin with. Everything I just pointed out becomes even more obvious when you move away from 3-note per string scales and move into the land of 2-note per string pentatonic scales, where pentatonic scale sequences are exponentially easier to play fast than 2-note per string scale patterns. Take for example this A minor box and this scale sequence. Believe it or not, it is much easier to play the scale sequence fast than it is to play the scale itself at even close to the same speed. Now, all that being said, that's not to say that you can't overcome these challenges in your picking. Of course you can. With some practice, you can overcome just about anything, and many people have. Paul Gilbert comes to mind. Which leads me to the reason why many people don't overcome these challenges, other than the fact that they're simply not aware of them. And that is, scale sequences are a lot more fun to play. They're more musical. They're way more likely to be something you actually use in music. Therefore, you simply are more likely to spend more time on scale sequences, which is another reason why the gap in speed between playing scale straight up and down and playing scale sequences straight up and down gets even wider for most people. So what's the takeaway here? How can you use this to play guitar better? Well, first of all, if you, like me, have secretly been struggling to play scale straight up and down, and you found scale sequences to always feel a little bit easier and you never understood why, now you know that there's nothing wrong with you. You're a perfectly normal human being. Pay particular attention to the first note you play on every string change, because that is the point in the scale where your hands are most likely to get out of sync if you're not careful. And what you need to do, no matter which picking style you use, is make sure that both hands arrive at that note at the exact same time. That's what's going to make your hands lock in tight in sync. Figure out which pair of strings you tend to get tripped up on the most, and you tend to lose your synchronization the most. If you isolated strings 3 and 2, and you've gotten to the point where it feels easy and very clean to play fast, remember what your hand position looks like and feels like when you're playing it, and then make sure that when you're playing it in the context of a scale, by the time you get to strings 3 and 2, your hand is in that exact same position and is just as relaxed as it was when you were playing it in isolation. Now, beyond everything I just said, you're going to want to have somebody take a look at your playing, somebody who knows what they're doing ideally, and tell you exactly what specific micro adjustments you need to make in your playing and practicing to make whatever it is you're working on feel easier to play fast. If you want even more help from me on building your guitar speed, check out the link in the description of this video. Go to the page on the screen right now. I'm going to show you a free 1-hour masterclass called Guitar Speed Formula.
All right, well, the video is fine. I don't know if I can edit this one into anything worth watching again. All right, we got 26 minutes here. I feel my energy completely crashing right now. All right, remove this from the watch later. Is there a we're gonna have time for this. This one seems like it'd be good to do. The one shape for all guitar arpeggios, pure magic. So that's a bold claim right there. One shape for all arpeggios. That one is 9 minutes long. Whoops. All right. Well, that's a pretty short one. All right, we'll do this one. Where did it go? God. I lost it. There it is. Okay. All right, this is going to be the last video we check out today. Okay. Video intro time. Oh my god, I am tired. Holy shit. Wow. Anyway, alright. This is the first time I am watching this video. So, the title of this, One Shape for All Guitar Arpeggios, Pure Magic by Q Jam Tracks. Now, this title to me is very clickbaity and at face value is untrue. Because how can you have one shape for all guitar arpeggios when the arpeggios themselves look different? So, if what this video is about is worthwhile, I am assuming he's going to take a shape that addresses specific intervals and then shows you how to manipulate those intervals in order to make these other arpeggios. Well, one problem I can think of right away is, well, all arpeggios. So does that include not just major, minor, diminished, and augmented, but does that include your suspended second, suspended 4, suspended flat 2, suspended sharp 4, suspended flat 2, flat 5, suspended 4, flat 5, major 7, minor 7, dominant 7, half diminished 7, fully diminished 7, your sixth chords, major 6, minor 6, minor flat 6, minor flat 6, flat 5. Does that include add 9s, add 11, major 9, which has a first, third, 5, 7, and 9 interval. What about minor 9, minor 11, major 13? A 13th chord has 7 intervals. So it's like there is a lot of chords out there, which means there's a lot of arpeggios out there. So let's see. So I'm being skeptical, absolutely. I don't see how anything can show you all guitar arpeggios, especially just one shape. But let's find out. Maybe I am wrong. Okay, so we've already changed it. So it goes from the title saying one shape for all guitar arpeggios, and now the beginning of his video says one shape for all 7th arpeggios. Alright, so we've narrowed things down. That's something. But as I am asking now, do we really have to have clickbaity titles just to get views? And is it more beneficial or harmful for people who are looking to learn these things? Like, can't we just be straight up honest about what the video is?
Playing arpeggios is the next step in your improvisation adventure. It will make you sound like a pro and create diversity in your improvisation and songwriting. Arpeggios can be very challenging to play, but in this video I'm going to show you the easy way. We're going to use a single shape as a concept to play all common 7th arpeggios.
Okay, one shape for all common 7th arpeggios. So now we're getting more specific, and he's breaking away from his own title.
But let's start at the beginning. An arpeggio is nothing more than the notes of a chord played consecutively in a musical context. So that means when you play an arpeggio, you actually play a chord. Only not all the notes at the same time, because that would be strumming. And we leave that to shearing at. Let's take a look at the C major chord, which is derived from the C major scale. The C major chord consists of the root C, the 3rd E, and the 5th G. These notes, root, 3rd, 5th, make up a triad chord, and in this case the C major chord. We could play the notes of that chord in order of appearance like this. Now we have created an arpeggio on the C major triad, but this is not what we're going to use. Besides the major triad, there are 2 more triads. The C minor triad, consisting of the tonic C, the minor 3rd E flat, and the 5th G. The C diminished triad, consisting of the tonic C, the minor 3rd E flat, and the diminished 5th G flat. Now, if you look at the conventional arpeggio shapes of these chords, you'll notice that it's not so easy to learn these arpeggios because they are all different in shape. So that's why we're going to reduce this arpeggio to one type of shape over just 2 strings, which we can then repeat in the next 2 octaves. Just watch this short video and it will all come to you. We'll take the major chord as an example. The triad arpeggio of the major chord looks like this. We can repeat this pattern, kind of copy and paste, over the neck in other octaves like so. C, E, G, and C, E, G. And now we have a very simple pattern consisting of one shape and sounds like this in real life. We could do this also for the minor and the diminished chords. The basic minor arpeggio shape would be C, E flat, G. And next we'll repeat this over the neck in 3 different octaves. C, E flat, G, and C, E flat, G.
I mean, isn't that showing 2 different shapes right away, though?
Again, we find ourselves playing such a nice and easy to remember pattern for this minor arpeggio. The last one is the diminished shape and look like this. We will repeat this shape over the neck, and again we have a super easy pattern which can be copied and pasted in the next octaves. C, E flat, G flat, and C, E flat, G flat. Still, triads are a bit boring, so stay tuned. I will take the next step and start to party with 7 chords. There are 5 common 7 chords divided in 3 groups. 1 is the major chord group, 2 is the group of minor chords, and 3 the diminished chords. There are also augmented chords, but they are outside the scope of this tutorial. Major chords look like this. A major 7th chord consists of a root, major 3rd, a 5th, and a major 7th. So C major 7 would be C, E, G, and B. A dominant 7th chord would be a root, major 3rd, 5th, and minor 7th. So C7 would be C, E, G, and B flat, the minor 7th. The minor chord, the minor 7th chord, would be a root, minor 3rd, a 5th, and a minor 7th. So C minor 7th would be C, E flat, G, and B flat. And the diminished chords look like this. We have our half diminished chord, or minor 7 flat 5 chord, which consists of a root, minor 3rd, diminished 5th, and minor 7th. So C minor 7 flat 5 would be C, E flat, G flat, and B flat. And then we have our full diminished chord. So C diminished 7 would be C, E flat, G flat, and B double flat. So, if we were to make arpeggios from these notes, we would end up with all kind of different arpeggio shapes. Surely we can use those shapes, but the logic is not easy to find in these arpeggio shapes, although you should learn them at one point of your life. Time to simplify this arpeggio chaos into patterns that make sense and are easy to remember, just like we did earlier with the triads. C major 7th chord, root, major 3rd, 5th and major 7th, looks like this when we play the notes over 2 strings. We start with the 7th and end with the 5th. We do exactly the same with the dominant 7th arpeggio, or the C7 chord. The only difference now is that the B is lowered to the B flat. For the minor 7th chord, we not only lower the 7th, but also the 3rd, from major 3rd to minor 3rd. The half diminished chord has a flat 5 in addition to the minor 3rd and the minor 7th. The change is very subtle, like this. And last, but not least, there's the full diminished chord, which has, as we've seen already, a minor 3rd, a flat 5, and a double flat 7th. Just like we did with the triads, we can repeat these easy patterns over the neck into the next 2 octaves. So the major 7 arpeggio becomes... The dominant 7 arpeggio becomes... The C minor arpeggio becomes... The half diminished or minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio becomes... And the full diminished 7 arpeggio becomes... So now we have a super easy pattern for playing those sophisticated 7th arpeggios.
I don't know if it's just me being tired right now, but I'm really questioning this whole response video thing sometimes. Like I feel like this is another video. It's like I don't really have much to add here. I can't just sit here and say like, well, it's well, I guess maybe just save it for live stream stuff, but. Like right here, like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different shapes. You have 5 different things. It's obviously not one. You're using one shape for the major 7 played in 3 different octaves. There's got to be a way to reword the title of that for it to be a more true thing, because obviously if you have 2 different arpeggios, you're gonna have 2 different shapes. It can't be the same shape. So yeah, he does need to change the title. The title is not true. I mean, what he's showing here is fantastic information. Like, it's good information, but the title is misleading. So no more misleading titles, people. Well, I mean, why listen to me? But yeah, I do not like the misleading title stuff. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong.
So playing arpeggios doesn't need to be that hard if you use these formats. Although I advise you to learn more variations than these patterns only in order to gain some flexibility and diversity when playing solos that bear arpeggios. Well, I hope this was crystal clear for you, and I'll see you next time in a new Jam Tracks guitar tutorial.
Well, there you go. She's got a lot of blank stuff here? What is this? Why is this all so much blank? Is it to meet YouTube's requirement for X amount of minutes in order to have proper monetization? Yeah, well. Alright, my brain's basically shut off at this point. I can't think anymore. Well, we got at least like 1 or 2 videos here. I didn't even post the links to the original videos in the description that we just watched. There were... That Bennett one, Dave Bennett I think it was, that's definitely getting edited down to one that's going to be shared, because I agree with what he was talking about there. I think that's important stuff to reiterate. Alright, well. Mr. Taylor, thank you for staying on the whole time. And thank you to everybody else who popped in and said hello and watches the archives thing. So yeah, if anyone's got videos they'd like me to check out and respond to, just let me know. Send either comment in this or send me an email. Let me know what it is you'd like me to check out, and we will do that. Plastodon, you're still here. Hello. And you have a great weekend, too. Thanks for coming in. All right, I need to go eat before I pass out this stream. Caleb, you're still here, too. We'll see you later.